Hey guys, in today's video you will learn the impactful story of Azriel Sterling, a young man who died suddenly in the school hallway and was taken to a spiritual dimension where he discovered a secret hidden by the Pope himself. A secret that exposes the emptiness of modern religions and reveals what really matters to the soul. What he saw on the other side will shock you. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell and comment below which city you are watching. Let's go on this revealing journey together. My name is Azriel Sterling, and, as I recall, the events that changed the course of my existence, I feel that words carry the weight and lightness of this transformation. At that time, I was just an ordinary young man, living within the walls of a school that seemed more like a box of routine, where the days blended together without any major surprises. I remember the hurried mornings, the distracted glances in the hallways, and the superficial conversations with friends who would never have imagined what was coming. Have you ever stopped to think that there is something beyond all this? I asked myself internally. But soon I got lost in the trivialities of everyday life. My conversations with Evan Matthews, my most loyal friend, were always punctuated by jokes and laughter that echoed in the hallways. One afternoon, as he commented on the latest games and the latest social media gossip, I realized that something inside me was crying out for more. "Azriel, you've been a bit distant today, how are you?" he asked, with the typical concern of someone who sees a friend immersed in his thoughts. I responded with a forced smile, without revealing that my concerns went beyond mere dissatisfaction with the routine. At that moment, my existence seemed even emptier, as if I were a secondary figure in a world that could not understand the depth of human feelings. The religious traditions that surrounded me, no matter how much they tried to decorate the environment with ceremonies and words of hope, sounded to me like distant echoes, unable to touch the essence of my soul. I believed that life was just that, a sequence of days that dragged on without the promise of greater meaning. But in that moment of silent introspection, something began to awaken in me, a seed of desire for a truth that went beyond mere physical existence. My life unfolded at Fairview like a succession of confusing days, where each class and break was repeated with the same predictability. I, Azriel Sterling, walked through the school halls feeling detached, as if I were just fulfilling an assigned role. In the mornings, as the sun barely rose, the sound of hurried footsteps and the muffled laughter of colleagues blended into the monotony of a routine without any major surprises. During classes, I watched my classmates engrossed in their smartphones and small talk, while I wondered if something more existed beyond the classroom walls. On one of those mornings, sitting on a park bench before school, I remembered the words of a teacher who once said, "Life is made up of moments that you don't always notice, but that shape who you will be." Even so, my mind remained stuck in the trivialities of everyday life without seeking a deeper meaning. I was talking to Evan Matthews, my longtime friend, about movies, games, and the latest trends. "Man, have you ever thought about getting out of this rut? There's a giant world out there waiting to be discovered," he once commented, but I just smiled, unable to explain the emptiness that squeezed me inside. In this atmosphere of indifference, even the religious rituals that were performed in the small Fairview church seemed distant and devoid of real meaning. I saw services as decorative events, something that filled time but did not touch the core of existence. During a celebration, as the words echoed dispassionately, I observed the blank expressions on the faces around me and wondered if, somehow, we were all stuck in a rut that prevented us from feeling the true essence of life. Despite this, there were moments when an inexplicable feeling made me think that something bigger was behind the veil of normality. On an autumn afternoon, when I saw the leaves falling and the wind whispering secrets, I felt a restlessness that defied all that apparent simplicity. These small moments left me with the feeling that reality was much deeper and more mysterious than the shiny surface of everyday life would suggest. The afternoon was following its usual course when, without any sign or warning, normality was abruptly interrupted. I was walking down the school hallway, deep in thought, when suddenly I felt as if the ground beneath my feet was crumbling. Everything happened in an instant that, despite being brief, seemed to last forever. It was as if the air had been knocked out of me, and reality began to fragment into small pieces. the sound of footsteps and the murmurs of colleagues turned into a distant, irrelevant echo, as if I were being dragged into a silent abyss. The impact of the fall, which under other circumstances would have stunned me with pain and shock, never materialized. Instead, a feeling of absolute detachment came over me. It was as if I was being thrown into a space where physical existence ceased to matter. I found myself floating, observing my own inert body on the ground as if I were watching a film in which I was no longer the protagonist, but rather a passive spectator of an event that transcended any human logic. At that moment, time seemed to slow down. Every split second carried an intensity that surpassed comprehension. My thoughts became clear, and for the first time, I could feel a deep calm invade my soul. I didn't feel fear or panic, just a strange curiosity mixed with a comforting feeling, as if I were about to discover a secret I'd kept forever. In the midst of this almost surreal experience, internal dialogues arose, asking me if this was the end or just a transition to something bigger and more meaningful. As the feeling of detachment intensified, reality distorted into colors and sounds that, although indefinable, conveyed an unusual peace. The routine, laughter, and conversations that once filled the school environment were gone, replaced by a silence that spoke louder than any words could express. For a brief moment, the existence I knew dissolved, and I found myself on the brink of a new dimension, a dimension that promised to reveal the hidden essence of life. As I found myself in this state of detachment, I was slowly enveloped by an atmosphere that transcends any mundane experience. The environment around me transformed into a vast space where the silence was as thick as the veil of night, and every sigh of the universe seemed to echo directly into my soul. I walked through this unknown territory aimlessly, but with full awareness and overwhelming curiosity. Amidst this ethereal setting, everything around me seemed to dissolve into soft lights and subtle shadows that danced in perfect harmony. I remember hearing, if only in my mind, a voice that sounded like the whisper of the wind. See beyond what the eyes can perceive. There was no face or defined shape for this voice, but its presence was remarkable, guiding my steps and urging me to explore the deepest corners of my essence. At one point, while walking along a path of pure energy, I found a clearing where time seemed to have stopped. The space there exuded a peace that knew no bounds, and I could feel every cell of my being vibrate in unison with the universe. In this environment, I noticed the existence of elements that defied logic, colors that had no name, and sounds that could not be described by human words. On an almost instinctive impulse, I declared out loud, without even knowing if anyone could hear me, "What is this? Where am I?" And the answer, not in the form of words but through a deep sense of understanding, filled me with the certainty that I was facing a revelation about the nature of life. Each moment unfolded as if it were an eternity, where the beating of my heart mixed with the beat of a cosmic symphony, reminding me that existence is much more than the mere sequence of everyday events. This experience, transcendent and singular, awakened feelings and sensations in me that I had never imagined. I was, at that moment, free from the bonds of the body and the limitations of human perception, immersed in a reality that pulsed with the truth of the divine. As I continued to be immersed in this indescribable dimension, a comforting presence began to form around me, almost as if a soft, welcoming light was enveloping me. It was at that exact moment that I noticed the approach of Lydia Carter, a female figure whose aura exuded an unconditional love and tenderness that I had never felt before. His words, although silent, carried a melody that calmed every remaining anguish in my being. I felt as if she said without uttering a sound, "I am here to guide you, to show you the path of truth." Her gestures were fluid, as if she were dancing with the very essence of the universe, and her eyes, even if she couldn't see clearly, conveyed a deep understanding of my soul. Soon after, as I absorbed the serenity that Lydia exuded, another presence was noticed. A male figure appeared, emanating a serene authority, which, without the slightest display of ostentation, commanded respect and awakened in me an inexplicable sense of security. His presence seemed to say, "Look at what has been lost in empty traditions and find the path to true faith." He approached with firm steps and, even without uttering words, his expression said that the superficiality of religious practice was a veil that covered the reality of the divine. I felt a mixture of admiration and discomfort, as if he was stripping away the masks that I, and so many others, used to hide our true essence. In a brief moment of introspection, the figure of Lydia turned to me and, with a silent smile, seemed to explain, "The superficiality of our beliefs is the result of carelessness, of distraction. It takes more than rituals to touch the divine. It takes a total surrender of the heart." I, with my heart racing and my mind overflowing with questions, just responded with an imperceptible nod, trying to absorb every fragment of wisdom that these divine presences offered me. The meeting, even without explicit dialogue, was a communication of souls, where each gesture and sensation carried the urgency of a genuine spiritual awakening, urging me to question and transcend the limits of a faith devoid of intimacy and authenticity. As I floated in this state of pure essence, visions began to unfold before my eyes with an intensity I had never experienced. I vividly remember a scene in which, as if through a mirror, I was forced to relive crucial moments of my existence, each memory loaded with choices I had ignored. In an ethereal room where time seemed frozen, I came across images of days when I chose superficiality, neglecting the depth of faith and the search for greater meaning. In the midst of this whirlwind of memories, a soft yet powerful voice resounded. "Why did you deny yourself the chance to delve into the truth?" It was as if each word penetrated every corner of my being, awakening a shiver of remorse and simultaneous understanding. As these revelations unfolded, I felt an urgency to confront my choices. I remembered moments when, by choosing to ignore the signs of my soul, I allowed mediocrity to take over my life. "You always had the chance to change, but you settled into the illusion of comfort," whispered the voice, echoing in a space where the truth was naked and raw. In an almost cinematic sequence, the images alternated between scenes of loneliness in the crowd and moments of pure hope that I, in another life, could have embraced. The impact was overwhelming, and the feeling of being challenged to face my own mistakes was mixed with a strange sense of relief, as if revealing the truth was finally the first step towards redemption. Each vision seemed to lead me to an inflection point, where the lessons of the past turned into a call to a new reality. I found myself faced with my own mistakes and the ephemerality of religious practices that only disguised the lack of genuine faith. Amid this storm of memories and lessons, one final whisper stood out. "It is in total surrender that true transformation happens." That simple sentence reverberated deep within me, sealing the conviction that my journey was just beginning, and that true change required a complete abandonment of what I had known until then. The next moment in my journey arrived abruptly, as if the universe decided to pull me back into the world I knew. Amid the whirlwind of sensations and visions, I felt an invisible force reconnect my being to my body. Suddenly, I woke up with my eyes half closed, surrounded by an environment of cold light and mechanical noises. Confused, I tried to understand what had happened, as the scent of disinfectant and the presence of anxious faces filled the air. A soft voice broke the silence. "Azriel, you're with us. You've managed to stay with us," said Olivia Brooks, the nurse, as she squeezed my hand with a look filled with compassion and relief. Still dazed, my words came out in mumbles. "What happened? I felt like I was in another place in another life." Olivia, with a reassuring smile, explained that I had been in an accident, something doctors classified as a near-death episode. However, reason seemed insufficient to explain the intensity of everything I experienced. The machines around me recorded stable vital signs, but inside me, a storm of revelations was still raging. Conversations with doctors and nurses mixed with my inner reality, where the teachings of that place of pure light and silence still echoed. "You came back for a greater reason, Azriel. Your awakening was not a mere chance," commented the doctor, while reviewing exams and trying to fit the clinical narrative to the inexplicable feeling of transformation that I carried. In the midst of this confusion, The hospital transformed into a scene of rebirth where each beat of my heart marked the possibility of a new beginning. As I rested on that bed, feeling the weight and lightness of the miracle of having returned, I began to realize that every word the professional said was a reminder of the new purpose that was emerging within me. There was a silence there that spoke louder than any logical explanation, as if life itself wanted to push me towards a mission that I could never ignore. The looks of compassion and concern around me mixed with a sense of internal urgency, a call to share the truth that now pulsed through my veins. The supernatural experience transformed my perception irrevocably. After waking up in the hospital, every beat of my heart seemed to whisper that something extraordinary was about to happen. Still under the weight of revelations, conversations with doctors and friends turned into internal dialogues that encouraged me to seek a new meaning in life. "You came back for a greater reason, Azriel," said the doctor with a conviction that mixed science and mystery. The words echoed within me, making me realize that that miracle was not mere chance, but the starting point for a profound transformation. As he rested, the hospital environment became the setting for an inner rebirth. Olivia Brooks and Evan Matthews' visits were almost reverential. Every gesture, every look, reinforced the call to transcend the superficiality that previously dominated my existence. In long bedside conversations, Olivia would tenderly comment, "Your eyes now reflect something beyond what we can see. It's as if you've glimpsed the essence of life." Evan, in turn, maintained an expectant tone. "I always knew there was something more in you, Azriel. Now, you have the chance to turn this awakening into a mission." This period of introspection led me to revisit my trajectory, confronting the moments in which I preferred the security of the known to the depth of a true spiritual awakening. The visions and the message from the divine presences clearly showed me that the time for distractions had come to an end. I needed to share what I had experienced, to alert those who were lost in the superficiality of a faith devoid of intimacy. In silent dialogues with my own being, I felt an unshakable urgency to transform my pain and my revelations into words that could touch sleeping hearts. I decided that from that moment on, my life would be dedicated to inspiring others to seek the truth that transcends empty rituals. With each story, with each word, I would seek to encourage a complete surrender to the divine, the search for a faith that transforms and awakens the dormant essence in each one. The mission was launched, and even though the challenges were immense, I knew that my journey of transformation was not only personal, but a beacon for those who still lived in the illusion of ephemeral comfort. Sitting on the edge of new understanding, I feel the need to record every lesson this experience has taught me. Reflecting on everything I have experienced, I realize that awakening is not just an isolated phenomenon, but the beginning of an internal transformation that reverberates in every aspect of existence. In one of those moments of deep silence, as the evening lights painted the room with warm tones, I heard a soft voice within me. "It is in total surrender that true change lies." That message reverberated like a mantra, guiding me to a truth that had long been hidden beneath layers of routine and superficiality. I was talking to Olivia, who had become a friend and confidant, and she commented tenderly, "Azriel, I see, in your eyes, the mark of a soul that is awakened to a greater calling. Don't let distractions take you away from the light that now shines within you." His words reinforced the urgency of abandoning empty rituals and seeking a genuine connection with the divine. In the midst of this internal and external dialogue, I also remembered the words of Marcus Griffin, who, although skeptical, recognized the depth of the transformation. "Sometimes the truth hits us unexpectedly. It's up to you to decide whether you will allow yourself to experience this change." I relived moments of loneliness and regret, but I also saw the potential for redemption that each person carries. The final message that was consolidated was a warning to all of us. Time to live an authentic faith is scarce, and superficiality, although comfortable, only takes us away from the greater purpose of life. This awareness compelled me to make a silent promise: to dedicate my existence to inspiring others to shed the masks of mediocrity and embrace total surrender to the divine. Therefore, I conclude this report not as a closure, but as the beginning of a continuous journey of transformation and light, where each word is an invitation to awaken, to seek what really matters. My plea is simple and sincere. Do not be blinded by the deceptive glare of daily distractions. Find the depth and live the faith that transforms the soul. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.